Five, four, three, two. Hey everybody, Josh Siertzen of World Alternative Media here, and of course I am joined by Tim Picciott of the Liberty Advisor. We're going over a bunch of important news today. I mean, this is insanity, folks. Every day I turn on the news, I look at what's going on online, and I'm just shocked because we are living in such an unprecedented time in history. We're going to go into a whole bunch of news, covering a whole bunch of topics, wide range, very historic news happening today in the United States and elsewhere in the world. But first, make sure to hit that like button, check those links below, and obviously help us out any way you can. There's many ways, including joining our newsletter at www.iamband.com. I'm joining you from Mexico. Tim is in the USSA, and we're going to get into a whole bunch of this news right away. So if we can get into the first article that I have ready from Zero Hedge, it is that 47,000 stores shutter across the U.S. as virtually all retailers stop paying rent. This is dramatic how this will affect not just the businesses and the mall-pocalypse that was already happening to begin with, but millions of jobs, guys. Millions of jobs are on the line, and people in this kind of situation tend to panic. They're not ready. They're not prepared. They are going to do whatever they need to do to feed their family. And that is what I think I am most concerned about at this moment, including here in Mexico, is that people are about to start, taking desperate measures that are not going to be good for other people. Exactly why I've always said, food, water, shelter, self-defense, you're not gathering things for the toughest guy on the block. And I feel like a lot of people gather things for the toughest guy on the block, and a lot of people didn't gather things at all, but are going to steal from the least tough guy on the block. And I'm really concerned about how this is going to affect people. Jumping to the next article out of Zero Hedge, it says 5-year auction treasury prices at lowest yield ever, despite sharp foreign buyer pullback. And as this article goes into, if yesterday's tailing 2-year auction was more of a shot in the dark with an avalanche of new issuance coming down the pipe and was hardly indicative of what future demands will look like, the same could be said for today's 5-year auction, even though unlike the 2-year, there was little one can say to criticize today's sale of $41 billion in 5-year paper. Let's start at the top. The yield on today's auction, which was 0.535%, was not only sharply below the February 1.15%, but was also below the lowest on record, which was recorded in July 2012 when it hit 0.58%. The auction also stopped through the win issued by 1.5 basis points, showing demand coming into the auction was quite high despite today's torrid risk rally. The bid to cover was also impressive, jumping from 2.46 to 2.53, the highest since July 2018. That said, the internals left a bit to be desired, with the indirect takedown from 61.5% to 52.1%, which was the lowest since August of 2015. And with foreign buyers stepping away, the directs taking down 12.6%, slightly above last month's 9.8%, if below the 6-year or the 6 auction average of 13.2%. It meant that primary dealers had to jump and took down 35.3%, the most since December 2018. Tim, before we go any further into all this, I wanted to talk to you a bit and ask you a bit about negative rates, which we are seeing quite historic action as of today. If you could go into that a bit. I mean, this is something we've been warning about for a long time. Can you go into that, considering Jerome Powell last December said we won't see any dip in interest and all is going to be well in 2020?
Yeah, and just so people know, it wasn't the Fed setting a negative interest rates. This
Right.
was supply and demand. However, the Fed is monkeying around with the supply and the demand. So, I do blame them for what is going on. But yeah, we have Treasury at negative interest rates. It was particularly the 1 and 3 month treasuries were at negative. So this morning I woke up, saw it at negative 0.03. And I do remember seeing on an institutional TD Ameritrade desk after hours about a week or two ago, it was that was the same deal. It was right around negative 0.03. But now this is during regular trading. We have negative rates here in America. And yeah, I mean, John Snipes and I did a video on this. What was it, June? calling. It's not that we're calling for negative rates. We just thought that that's where things were going, and here we are. That's exactly where things are going. We're at this moment in time right now where everyone thought that this was crazy. I mean, even like 2 weeks ago, telling this to my grandfather, and he's just like, Timmy, that's just crazy talk. We're not going to have negative interest rates. And
I think I'm going to start calling you Timmy from now on.
All right, Joshy. All right, that's JoJo. So I don't know. So let's go. So, but I mean, we've got, what the $6 trillion bailout plan that Larry Kudlow was talking about. And so, I mean, there's a $2 trillion plan, and then they've got, and that's like round one. And then they also have like a $6 trillion plan. So it's just, there used to be, 800-pound gorillas in a room. Well, now I've got, 6 trillion pound gorillas. Rashid Tlaib, or however you pronounce her name, talking about how we've got to have $1 trillion coins. And then those $1 trillion coins are then going to be used to, shore up these, everyone in America. It's not even Americans. So unfortunately, Josh, of course, once again, F his life that he is over in Mexico. So maybe he's not going to be able to get these checks. Otherwise, $2,000.
I don't want no sticking handout.
I want my money back, so I'm not gonna, disparage anybody that's
fair enough. Well, if we could jump to, and it's so crazy because this idea of just printing, like that's going to save us. I mean, in the short term,
can we read the actual plan?
Today,
Let's read the actual plan. The actual plan is actually pretty rich here. The Treasury Secretary would direct the U.S. Mint to issue two $1 trillion platinum coins. Then Congress would direct the Fed to purchase those coins, and then the Fed would complete the purchase by crediting the U.S. Mint's account of the Fed with $2 trillion. Then the Fed would retain ownership of said $2 trillion coins permanently to ensure its own balance sheet remains fully capitalized. And then the Treasury would sweep the newly created funds into the Mint, blah, 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 blah. And then the Treasury would make those funds available to the Bureau of Fiscal Services, which I didn't even know was even a thing. And then you've got Joe the Weasel Wiesenthal from Business Insider, who's just talking about what a great thing this is. And
okay, let's rewind for a second, Tim, because first of all, this is like peak central planning. This is why we're in the issue that we're currently in outside of the coronavirus, but which of course was just a catalyst, not the cause of this domino effect. But I mean, this is something that Obama said as well to a lesser degree, and people called him crazy, rightly so at the time. In 2012, he said, "Well, maybe we'll just print a $1 trillion coin."
Folks, yeah,
folks, my good folks will print a $1 trillion coin, and people are like rightly pointing out that's not economically literate at all.
Yeah, you're right. We need $2 trillion coins. I mean,
obviously, and then pay back those because obviously there's going to be interest. It's so insane.
Well, I guess technically there wouldn't be interest because this would be the Federal Reserve or the Treasury issuing it. So like how money was supposed to be. So if the Treasury is issuing it, then there wouldn't be interest, which then begs you to wonder why there's even a Federal Reserve to begin with, because the entire thing is a scam. It's a complete fraud. All of you guys already know this who are watching
in the Fed, folks. Well, and I do want to jump to the next story in the economic lineup we have here for you guys today. Obviously, this is historic times. As a Miami Herald says, Postal Service will not survive the summer. Lawmakers warn it could go bankrupt. Well, first of all, the post office, the Postal Service, quote unquote, the government post office is a monopolized industry that hurts any competitors that maybe want to deliver things. Amazon's taking them over themselves. I mean, they aren't efficient. They're terrible. You get your package bashed up after like 10 weeks half the time. If you get a little bit of coronavirus mixed in with the box in the package. I mean, it doesn't surprise me at all to see it going under. They should have gone under a long time ago. All you need to do is walk down the street and look at a postal office mailbox next to a FedEx or a UPS. And you look and you're like, oh, the private ones are in good shape. You get the package on time most of the time. And this government post office service, quote unquote, is just a monopoly on packaging and sending products. And it doesn't work. It's not efficient. If it weren't for the government stealing your money to prop it up, it couldn't exist. But
now they want the post office to run the new digital dollar. I've seen that one getting floated around as another one too.
Yeah, well, of course, we'll tie it into social credit, facial recognition, technocracy, make the U.S. China again.
Universal basic income, and then you can have negative rates because now if everything is digital, you can then suck all their money out of the accounts. But yeah, if you guys go we can take it back to the article.
Well, I'm going to jump to the next one here because there's no need to go and jump deep into that. The point is a lot of industries are going down, but it's a Zero Hedge article called the $5 trillion down the drain. And just about 3 small paragraphs down, it says, as a nation, we spend just short of $5 trillion a year in Washington and at least another $1 trillion at the state and local level. Our government spends one of every $3 that passes through the U.S. economy. It is the largest enterprise in the history of the world. I wanted to mention that because currently we're talking about printing $1 trillion a day, $1 trillion a day, massive bailouts, the biggest bailouts we've ever seen in history.
Well, I do want to provide some context to that because that was for the repo markets, but that is what's available to the repo markets, but that's not really the case anymore. Because you want to know why it's not the case is because back in September, when there was this whole repo crisis was going on. If you guys want to know more about the repo crisis, watch my presentation from AnarchoPoco. I don't have time to get into like 20 minutes of it right now. But back then back in the olden days, when you had to hold 10% in reserves, the banks had to have a certain amount in reserves every night, which required them to have a repo market. Now the banks aren't required to hold anything. Therefore, the repo market actually isn't that active. And it's about $100 billion a day in more traditional quantitative easing, aka money printing, aka we're Zimbabwe now.
Basically, yeah. Well, and honestly, I'm seeing real signs of what we saw in Venezuela to a great extent. Right now, there are huge lineups for the banks here in Mexico. People aren't able to get their money out of many banks in the United States. In Canada, I can't move my money. I'm basically stuck. I barely have anything in the banks to begin with. First of all, I'm broke. Second of all, I don't like to keep my money in the banks. So for many reasons, that's not a major issue for me personally, but obviously, we're looking at bail-in regimes and the legislation in Canada.
Send those super chats, so then that way Josh can get some money.
Yeah, absolutely. $20 is $20. Hey guys, if you haven't already, hit that like button on this video. I see people tuning in, and make sure to share this on social media. But okay, so this is an absolutely historic time. We all feel it. We all see it. Everyone's feeling the pain of the dollar crunch right now. Even if you're prepared to a great extent, you're seeing a huge issue in just getting stuff from the store. Many of you are stuck in your homes. You can't even leave, depending where you are in the world. We're in South Africa yesterday. They did a shutdown. In the UK, they're shutting down, even though they said just 5 days ago that they downgraded coronavirus from a high risk disease. But then they're suddenly like, oh, but we have to shut you all in your homes and put army tanks in the streets. We're going to go into Britain a little bit later because we have some good, bad news coming out of Britain today, which we will break down at a better scale later on in the video. But I want to jump to the article out of Zero Hedge, the next one, which is Greatest Depression has already started, Celente warns. Now, of course, Gerald Celente has been talking about these issues forever. I remember watching him in like 2006.
Did they find this photo from him from like a 2002 like flip phone or something? I mean, the photo
a potato took that picture. But I mean, look, Gerald Celente has been right on this for a long time. He's put a few dates on things in the past, which I'm not a fan of. But generally speaking, he's gotten the fundamentals down, and he's talked about how those fundamentals are no longer there, which I appreciate from him. Now, in this article, he says, it says from Greg Hunter's USAWatchdog.com, by the way, Gerald Celente, a top trend researcher and publisher of the Trends Journal, says the world is already in an economic depression. Well, of course, Celente explains, never in the history of the world has the whole world, or most of the world, been shut down by politicians destroying people's lives and their businesses. And I quote, people are going to go bankrupt. You are going to see suicide rates increase. You are going to see crime escalate and people ODing on drugs because of depression. Our leaders are totally closing down the economy. Again, this has never been done before. It's not only Wall Street going down, it's Main Street went down simultaneously. That is unprecedented. Usually the markets go down and then the ripple effects start hitting Main Street. This time they are both down. It's going to be worse than the Great Depression. It's going to be the greatest depression. I 100% agree with that. And look, we're dealing with a case right now where it's not just the economy collapsing. It's all these different factors that play into it. A pandemic that was probably bioengineered and weaponized. At the same time as government ownership over private property, they're seizing people's property, forcing people into their homes. Yourself, your body being your most important property and asset. And they are telling people they can't walk in the streets. In the streets of Spain, people are getting beaten half to death, even with permission slips by police for walking down the street. I mean, the whole world is in chaos right now. We're going to go a bit into other issues and different factors right away, but but I mean,
wait, look who does not agree with Mr. Gerald Slente. Osama Ben Bernanke. Coronavirus disruptions much closer to a major snowstorm than the Great Depression. Well, it wouldn't be the first time that
in what world is he living in, Tim? What world is he living in?
Apparently the same world apparently the same world as what is it, Mnuchin, who just a week and a half ago said we're gonna be in a recession. Like what do you
this isn't a recession.
So
I think these people are smoking adrenochrome, whatever's keeping them alive, because half of them are decrepit as hell. And again, another issue we're going to go into later.
Oh, speaking of which, adrenochrome. So you've got, we can get into what it is, but you have the Chrome browser that's on, on all Android phones. And then the processor that runs it is Adreno. So you put it together, Adrenochrome 666. 666 is also in the Google logo. Sounds crazy. Just, I won't say Google it, DuckDuckGo it, pre-search it, whatever. But again, to this issue of all this control, and we're going to go into a lot more right away. We have the idea of forced vaccines, people saying that you might not be able to travel without vaccines in the cashless society where you're tied in by social credit to maybe Facebook, facial recognition. You might be tied into perhaps a currency that will be tracked, controlled, no bank runs, full on taxes, tracking, and everything. And honestly, this is one of the biggest issues that we face, is that they can completely control your money. If your money's in the bank, it's not yours, it's a bank's. If your money's always going to the banks via digital transactions and legal tender laws, it's never your money, it's always a bank's, and you are enslaved to And now they don't even have to hold on to any of your money too. Let's just point that one out as well.
Yeah, exactly. And to begin with, the banks don't even have your money. I mean, people have to look at the cash to deposit ratio, and most banks at that rate, they're basically bankrupt. Many of the major banks have less than 1% of depositors' cash covered. So, I mean, I understand investing, and it's not the old savings and loans banks anymore, but come on, less than 1%, that's not a lot of security. That's a new level of risk that should never, ever, ever be the case. I want to jump to the next article here, which is interesting because we went into this yesterday on the show. As it says out of Zero Hedge, Pompeo denounces China's Wuhan virus disinformation campaign before G7 leaders. And he's basically saying that the numbers are faulty, they're fake. Which is interesting because obviously now I don't trust Pompeo, CIA Pompeo. I certainly do not. It is interesting, however, to note that Pompeo just the other day was caught on live TV saying that we are in a living exercise, a live exercise. This whole coronavirus thing is a live exercise. That sounds rather strange. So again, I don't trust him, but I also don't trust China, where millions and millions of phone numbers have suddenly disappeared. And then they claim that there's no coronavirus there anymore. Xi Jinping, or Winnie the Pooh, whatever you want to call him, shows up at one of the Wuhan coronavirus facilities and says it's all cleared, no problem, when they have let out tons of people with coronavirus back into the street, and they're covering it up. There's evidence that they incinerated and burned people alive, many, many people, possibly thousands of people. And with the phone numbers disappearing and the doctors and whistleblowers that are coming out, obviously it's a big cover up. There is a shift towards China for this cashless system, the technocratic superstate. The same thing we've been talking about forever. And I'll say it again, Henry Kissinger meeting with Mao Zedong in the early 1970s against Nixon's wishes, leading into an alliance with China, which allowed them to have a huge trade monopoly, and then also led to the Trilateral Commission under Zbigniew Brzezinski. And with the Trilateral Commission, you see Brzezinski himself talk about how he wanted to create a technocratic state. And now we have China, social credit, Mark Zuckerberg working with China on facial recognition, creating a massive power grid. Facial recognition everywhere you go. You walk down the street, police have facial recognition goggles on where they show your credit score above your head by just looking at you. They have smart city grids, as they call it, where you walk and you jaywalk and you get a ticket straight to your phone that says you jaywalked with your face on a giant billboard shaming you. And this is the kind of society we are currently living in, where they also are developing that in places like Darwin in Australia. They have been working on this for a long time. So what I'm trying to say is that we are in a planned collapse, in my opinion, in order to enslave humanity, in order to push us further into servitude to the state, right where they want us, desperate, dependent, weak, stupid, as they put it, and as the Romans put it long, long, long ago, and I'll say it again, weak men create bad times, hard times. Hard times create strong men create good times create weak men. We go in a circle, and right now we are at the end of the good times going into the bad times, the hard times. We're going to have to deal with some hard times, and I hope to God that it makes the next generation stronger than mine and those before me, because we have had it so good. So good. There's been many problems. There's the enslavement racket of government, millions dead by government, but nonetheless, our living conditions, generally speaking, have been so good and so pampered. And here we are. Everything is starting to change.
And that quote you're trying to pull up was adversity makes men, prosperity makes monsters. So
see. Yes, did I just say C? I'm so used to being in Mexico right now. I'm just saying C instead of yes. But
no, yeah. I got the gist of what you're trying to say. But yeah, adversity makes men, prosperity makes monsters. We've had a lot of prosperity, and so you always see these cycles where once you're 3-4 generations removed, the spoiled, decadent children don't know what their great grandparents went through, and then we have to go through it again.
And there's so much strange changes and contrast with the stories coming out about the coronavirus right now. By the way, if you haven't already, hit that like button, send in those super chats. It's the only thing that keeps us alive. And check those links below. Join our new newsletter at www.iamband.com. Send in your email address for that. We really appreciate it. But hit that like button and send in those super chats. It's literally the only thing keeping us funded here at WAM and allowing us to do these shows every day. But anyway, I will go into a bunch of questions right away, but I want to jump into this next article, which is strange. It says, out of Zero Hedge, Italy over the hump, decline in new cases, deaths suggest lockdown is working. Now, wait just a second here, guys. I don't know why Zero Hedge is towing this line, but look, just yesterday, Italy announced that the cases were getting worse. Which is it? They had lockdowns a long time ago, and it's still double, triple, quadruple. It exploded. We're seeing that in Spain as well. And now today they say it shows that lockdown is working. The cases are dropping. You sure about that? Because literally less than 24 hours ago, you guys said that it was getting worse, and it actually temporarily halted the stock market. Not entirely, but it temporarily halted the bullishness of the stock market just being pumped with QE. But just yesterday we
actually said, hey, you guys. No, that wasn't you guys. No.
But I mean, it's where is the information? Where is the truth in all of this? We are getting hit from every angle by one story, then another that can contradict each other. And you have to wonder, where is the truth here? And I'm really concerned about this because obviously, I said it before and I'll say it again. I believe that this is bioengineered and weaponized. The first case of novel coronavirus as a sample created in a lab was in the Netherlands in 2015. A sample was sent to Winnipeg, Canada, to a disease research lab by the University of Manitoba in 2015 as well. A sample went missing. And then here we have it show up right outside the disease, one of the world's biggest disease facilities and infectious disease research facilities in Wuhan.
That stole the Harvard scientist who had 2 Chinese spies working for him, that they stole stuff out of the country. And I don't know, I heard something about that.
There are many theories. One of them being that a Chinese couple stole it from the Winnipeg, Canada lab and brought it back to China. One way or another, what's interesting is that there was military exercises and war games in China with the U.S. government in Wuhan right before this broke out. I'm not saying one thing, did the other leads to another, but I mean, it's very strange.
They wouldn't do that. The government wouldn't do that. They love us.
Government doing bad things? No. Well, Tim, I wanted to ask with all this, and we're going to go into more of these issues right away, but what is your takeaway so far from this massive so-called pandemic, possibly weaponized, a collapse of the economy? I mean, there's never been a crazier time to be alive.
Yeah, that's for sure. And I saw somebody in the comments the other day, and they called it a plandemic. And I'm like, that's a brilliant term, plandemic. And then it's ushered in, bad dad joke here, the corona capitalism. So we've got this coronavirus that is now terrible and the perfect. And some other people, Ernie liked it. So some other people, what is really going on with this? This has been used as the excuse, the linchpin to then say, it wasn't, the economy's going great. If it wasn't for this damn, virus, then, everything would be going great. I mean, even Bernanke is saying, oh, it's like excuse me, snowstorm. I was eating too when you guys weren't, when Josh.
Great. I'm sure. Yeah. Well,
but,
but I mean,
no, this is all planned. This has all been used as the excuse of, oh, we just happen to have, this whole digital dollar thing. You think that just came out of nowhere, that this, they're like, oh, by the way, we've got a digital dollar. Well, I'm sure that doesn't take 5 seconds to go, create and get the infrastructure and plan all that stuff out. I mean, and then you've got Coinbase's former chief legal officer, who starting on April 1st is going to now be in charge of the OCC, the Office of Comptroller of Currency. And so, I mean, all these things I think were planned out in advance. This is being used as the excuse. Donald Trump is the guy in there who I think he's trying to do good things in terms of what he thinks is good things. However, this is now because he wants to satisfy everybody.
Puppets will be puppets.
Yeah, he wants to satisfy everybody. And now he's being used to usher in all this different totalitarianism, all this economic stuff. When
well, it goes back to that old saying, never let a crisis go to waste.
Rahm Emanuel. And then Rahm Emanuel's brother, I can't remember I think it's Ezekiel Emanuel. I can't believe I even remember that. But Ezekiel Emanuel, when at the time was, I think, 76 years old, and now, or maybe 73. And he was saying, listen, the goal is to make sure that people don't live past 75. If you're 75 years old and you need some sort of hip replacement or this or that, we're not wasting money on you. It needs to go to the younger generation. And so one of the architects of Obamacare, which, not only Jonathan Gruber, which, he was on there saying, transparency is not a good thing. And this only passed because the American people are idiots. I mean, it was paraphrasing. It was something like that. Like, the American people's economic illiteracy is the only reason any of this stuff can work. And so here we are, I'm trying to let, people in our generation know this stuff. I went to a liberal arts school in New York. You can only imagine how popular I am with everyone I went to school with. And so, trying to give people like the real lowdown on what's going on is not, unfortunately, it's not very easy. And what they're doing is they're using this to then, have some sort of, oh, hey, what will the people put up with? Will they put up with losing their businesses, losing their jobs?
Well, I mean, and it's difficult because there's no real good way to break down this issue, because we're getting hit from all angles here, and there's so many issues happening at once. It's so many problems, so many crises happening all at once, and to be able to properly try and take that news and deliver it in a way where we can at least give people a positive message is very difficult right now, because I don't feel very positive about any of this. Again, I think they're using this crisis. I think that when you look at things like Event 201, there's clearly a plan here, and that plan is not a good one. And we're obviously witnessing a massive exercise play out. And one person in the live chat says, Diggin It says, UK government just admitted C-19 is not a high consequence infectious disease. Yeah, absolutely. Well, on March 19th, they said that. And what was interesting is within a couple of days, they declared full lockdown. So do they care about the illness? They say it's not a big deal, but they still are okay with locking everyone in their homes and possibly up to 2 years, 70-plus-year-olds possibly being stuck in their home for up to 2 years. I mean, think about that, folks. Can you imagine being forced into your home for 2 years, not being allowed to walk down the street, not being allowed to go outside? It's a huge waste of your life. It's a huge infringement of your freedom. It is hugely coercive. And again, for something that, again, I believe that coronavirus is not a good thing. Obviously, it's killing a lot of people, a lot more per capita than the flu. And the flu has had 100 years to play out, whereas coronavirus has not. But there's a difference here. It's that which is more destructive, the virus or the government? The government being the biggest virus, the government being the biggest parasite, and they're utilizing this crisis
to
take over everyone's lives.
Good way to save Social Security, Medicare. So, I mean, you get all these people who've paid in their entire lives to get whatever pittance the government's going to give them. And even if the government doesn't even renege on that, what they're end up going to doing is they're going to inflate away the value of whatever they're getting. And by the way, now if they all end up passing away and dying, then that could be a way to shore up Social Security and Medicare. So who knows if this was some sort of engineered bioweapon to just take care of the older generation. And I'm just here theorizing. I don't know any of this, but, how coincidental it is that, maybe it helps shores up the government's finances, which, that's the last thing the government cares about is shoring up their finances, as we're, having $1 trillion coins and, universal basic income and negative interest rates. And people said that we were fear mongering the entire time. Where's an apology? Because right now, and people were even saying yesterday when we were talking about the digital dollar, they're like, oh, this is just conspiracy porn. And this is, you guys are fear mongering. Like, no, it is literally in the bill, right? Well, actually, they took it out of the bill. So it's in the Maxine Waters bill, not in the was Nancy Pelosi bill or whoever it was, or Feinstein, I forgot which one of those terrorists that were up there. But yeah, now they're saying that if you go and you cough on somebody, that you could be charged with terrorism.
Yeah, I want to actually jump to that article, Tim, which is from Fox 5 New York, which says man faces terror charges after coughing on grocery store worker. And this is peak insanity, guys. I mean, this guy, it says down below, a New Jersey man the governor described as a knucklehead. Oh, God, faces multiple charges after he allegedly coughed on a grocery store worker and then claimed to have coronavirus. Governor Phil Murphy said at a Tuesday afternoon news conference that the man got into a dispute with an employee of a Wegmans store sometime on Sunday. And I quote, he coughed on the woman and told her after doing so that he had coronavirus, Murphy said. The man, identified as George Falcone of Freehold, then allegedly refused to give police his name or driver's license for more than 40 minutes. It happened at Wegmans on Route 9 in Manalapan. Oh, Tim, by the way,
shout out to Wegmans. Wegmans is from my area of the world, Rochester and Syracuse, New York. So
oh, great.
Best grocery store out there. My dad used to actually work for Wegmans.
Italy.
My dad used to actually work for like their biggest competitor, my grandpa's neighbor. So,
well, I do want to note though that what's interesting is so I did the same thing as this guy, not on a random stranger, but on I believe David Tell at the Comedy Store about a month ago. We're hanging out backstage with Sam Tripoli after I did my show with him. And, I coughed because I have asthma and I've been coughing for months and I don't have coronavirus, guys. But it was funny because I coughed and I accidentally coughed like on his shoulder. And I'm like, oh, sorry, I got a little bit of corona AIDS on you. Everyone laughed. All is well. He still is alive and does not have coronavirus. So good for him. But is probably stuck in his house at this current moment. But I mean, this is just peak insanity when we're at a point where people are getting terrorist charges for this. Again, I believe that the coronavirus is bad. They wouldn't just spread an illness that isn't bad. In order to get people on their side, they have to mutate and bioengineer something that's going to hurt people. But with that said, they're diagnosing a lot of people with pneumonia with coronavirus. So they're propping up the numbers just like they did with AIDS and HIV back in the 1980s. There's a lot of manipulation of numbers that needs to be called out. When you just call every single lung issue coronavirus, then you end up with faulty numbers that you can utilize in order to, again, not let a crisis go to waste.
Well, it's even starting to affect their own the lizard people over there. We see Prince Philip now supposedly has been diagnosed.
Prince Charles. So let's actually bring that article up.
Charles. So then it was Prince. Prince Philip was the one who said, "I hope I come back as a virus to then wipe out humanity." Okay.
Yeah, and his grandson, Prince William. Also, I hate even calling him Prince. It sounds super lame. But Prince William said that he wanted to depopulate the earth as well. I haven't ever heard that from Prince Charles. I could be wrong, but the guy's a creeper.
No, I messed it up.
Jimmy Savile.
Yeah, I'm glad that I don't know which one of these said that, and I didn't realize that was actually the next article.
I know way too much about the royal family, but not because I like them, but because I like to know about them. But if you can bring up that Sun News article there, Tim, on the screen, as it says, bug hits royals. Prince Charles, 71, tests positive for coronavirus, palace officials confirm. And it disappeared from the screen, and it is back. All right, look at that face. That's a face only a mother can like. Carrying on, as it says, Prince Charles, 71, has tested positive for coronavirus, Clarence House announced today. The future king has been displaying mild symptoms, but remains in good health after being diagnosed with a bug on Monday night. I do want to mention that the royals were actually supportive of Brexit. I believe that there is like this weird clash of powers, even though they're all part of the same elite, and they're probably helping to ensure this as well, that they are trying to morph the royal family with the global government, or just trying to get rid of it and prop up the global government and replace, rinse and repeat, that kind of situation. Because from my perspective, there has been a clear attempt to slowly whittle down powers of the royal family, which is a good thing, but then bring that into a global governance system, which is why I found it interesting that they were actually very supportive of Brexit.
Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family, which changed their name to Windsor. Josh.
Well, that's the thing. In 1917, there was a huge problem in Britain with people attacking Germans. German families, German businesses were attacked, broken into, smashed up, started on fire. People were beaten in the streets. And here is the Saxe-Coburg-Gotha family, which is obviously the royal family, which has been the royal family for quite some time, but the Saxe-Coburg Gotha only came from, I believe, the husband of Queen Victoria. But nonetheless, the point is they changed their name to Windsor based on a property, a royal estate that they had, because it just sounded more, nice for British people. And what happened was they even, because of the animosity, left the Tsar of Russia, Tsar Nicholas, to die. He had a way to escape as the communists were taking over during the October Revolution. He had a chance to escape, and obviously King George the Fifth insisted that he stay put in Russia, to which he and his whole family was killed after, and then in comes a communist order that took over the USSR. So just a little history lesson for you guys there. They've been trying to
let's back it up even further, and then you back it up even further. They come from not only Germany but Transylvania, where they are actual. You have Prince Charles talking about how he spends like half the year in Romania. They are directly related to Vlad the Impaler, Vladas Tepes, aka Dracula. And you don't have to believe me saying that. And that you probably believe me more than you believe Prince Charles anyways. But there's a video of Prince Charles where he's walking around, and actually in this article goes on to say where they admit they are directly related to literally freaking Dracula.
What's interesting is that
hyperbole. Go call me out on that. Yeah.
Well, if you go back to the 1970s and 80s, Prince Charles was very much involved in witch medicine, and was tried to promote the idea, because of some philosopher that he liked, that it would be better to just never take pharmaceuticals, which, hey, I'm not against, but then he was like saying that weird like rituals and like meditations would cure all diseases and all this kind of stuff. So it's just interesting.
Hillary. Yeah, it reminds me of Hillary.
But I want to mention a comment that's in the chat. By the way, send in your super chats. Press the like button if you haven't already. The super chats keep us alive here at WHAM, and we cannot do it without you guys. Seriously, we haven't gotten any super chats yet today. So anything $1, $2 helps a huge amount. So if you can send those in, we really, really, truly appreciate that. As one person commented in the chat here, it says Bronson Kahui. Says, just printed my coronavirus for Congress shirt yesterday. That is brilliant. I think I kind of want one of those.
Maybe Rand Paul was taking one for the team the other day. I don't know why everyone's chastising him so much.
Yeah, I know. Taking one for the team. Yeah, exactly. And he's a doctor. He'll be okay. Not necessarily. But anyway, let's carry on to something that we haven't been told that ties into all of this. It was something that I went into yesterday on the show, and I want to remind people about again today from Congress.gov, which is this bill, HR 5717, which is dramatic attack on gun rights, which is happening right now in the United States. That's all under wraps. No one's talking about it. It's huge, huge news, and it will affect you when everyone's going out and buying guns right now in order to protect themselves from possibly mass hysteria, panic, starvation, hyperinflation, all sorts of crazy stuff, communist land grabs and all sorts of stuff. Ammunition is pouring off the shelf. Well, this bill, this House resolution, would make a 30% tax on all firearms sold. 30% plus a 50% tax on all ammunition. Think about how dramatic that would affect, especially the lesser well-off people that are trying to defend themselves and their family in this very, very concerning time that people is gonna.
It's gonna be good for sales of Cody Wilson's Ghost Gunner, and also be pretty good for reloading kits.
I believe that people are generally going to shift towards making amends of this, and it's never been easier to build a gun in your garage. It's never been easier to 3D print a gun, and those are only getting better. But also this House resolution also mentions
No.
This House resolution also mentions you need a license.
Applicable state laws may apply, so check your.
Okay, but the House resolution here says you need a license to touch a firearm, but you need to touch a firearm to get your license by taking a class. So how does that work? You need in order to touch a firearm, you need a license. Wait, this actually hugely affects the heritage or heirloom clause. This hugely affects the ability for friends to go out shooting. Or Canadians for that matter, when they're in the United States, who want to go with some friends and go shooting in the desert or something. But I mean, think of that. You need to get a license to touch a firearm, but in order to get a license, you have to touch a firearm to do the class. How does that work? It's just crazy. So this is all happening with the cashless society, with the communist land grab, with the communist central planning and printing of currency, with the collapse of civilization right now, as we see this pandemic that's obviously been
this goes
utilized.
I mean, this goes back to the 30s where they had the National Firearms Act, where essentially
Right.
when they repealed machine guns, there was a machine gun tax stamp. But in order to have the machine gun, you had to have the machine gun in order to get this stamp. But if you already had the machine gun, you already committing the crime, which is actually how they made marijuana illegal, which they didn't actually make marijuana illegal. They said you had to have a stamp. And so I don't know if they're still operating underneath those same rules, but yeah, I digress.
Absolutely. Well, and by the way, Truth Seeker says they can't enforce laws in the desert. That is true to an extent. Well, especially if you are defended. And DT writes, what is your forecast regarding the lockdown of Quebec and Ontario? Most people have zero savings and live paycheck to paycheck. Same thing for most businesses. And I would say, yeah, that's true. Well, that's for most of the world, though. Like right now, there's a lot of possible panic about to break out here in Puerto Vallarta, Mexico, where people have lost all their jobs, thousands of jobs gone. And there's a lot of talk about gringos like myself possibly being attacked in the streets and robbed in the very near future if this continues getting worse, and it will. And it's not because of the Mexican government, it's because of the Canadian government and the US government telling Canadians, especially, to come home or else they lose the health insurance they've already paid for, their travel insurance, which is crazy. So they flooded the Puerto Vallarta airport. They all went home, and now there's very few people outside of Mexico still in Puerto Vallarta, which, as far as the government goes, is safer because they can't enforce anything. However, with everyone leaving, people are going to do what they need to do to feed their family, and I'm going to be a target. So I'm a little bit concerned about that, obviously. But as for Quebec and Ontario, I mean, people anywhere in the world, there's going to be runs on the banks. There's going to be a starvation because people didn't prepare. They didn't stock food. They stocked up instead a bunch of toilet paper and no food. I mean, it's ridiculous.
And Mountain Dew.
Yeah, and Mountain Dew. And the stores here in Mexico are still pretty well off. There's shortages of flour and stuff, but water's still there in abundance, toilet paper, all that kind of stuff. Tim has got his mask. By the way, I want to give a big shout out to Chip Fernandez, who sent $1.99 in the super chat. Thank you so much. This future client of Tim here will DocuSign soon. Well, great to see you, Chip. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate that. You are keeping Wham alive. Seriously, $1, $2 makes a huge difference. We don't get monetized much at all anymore. And when we do, it's very minor and they stop our video from being seen. So those super chats are literally what is keeping this operation alive as a mainstream media. The same people, by the way, who covered up for Jimmy Savile and Epstein, who work with the royal family, work with the governments, work with, Operation Mockingbird, that kind of stuff. Those people are propagandizing the public into complete subservience, weakness, and slavery. And we are trying to break through that wall, but we cannot do it without you guys, because you guys are the only people that are able to keep us up and running, because the establishment, YouTube, Google, doesn't want us to be talking about this stuff anymore. Also, join us on float.app, flote.app. And yeah, I mean, Google is probably going to go down with this bubble eventually here. I mean, they've been propped up too long, though they seem to be trying to create their own sovereign governance or government or sovereign state, which has been warned about for many years as well. As Tim just brought up on the screen, CNBC, negative rates come to the U.S. 1 month and 3 months Treasury bill yields are now below zero. So, Tim, for those that haven't heard about this, can you go into this and what this means?
Yeah, so I mean, effectively, I don't want to call it the free market, but this was not the Fed setting rates at zero, which is something different. This was the free market. I'll put that in air quotes over there, where the demand was such that people were willing to pay prices that were, I mean, most bonds they sell at $100, so they were willing to pay more than that and actually dip the yields into negative. So this is something, yeah, that we had saw this coming for a long time. It was one of the crazier calls that we made. Came a lot quicker than I thought it was going to happen. Again, we don't see this on. So if you're keeping your money in cash, yeah, it was a good thing if you're in cash, starting in January. But I mean, going forward, they're going to hyperinflate all the financial assets, in my opinion. And it's not a great thing to just sit in cash forever. And right now they're incentivizing you to not be in cash, because if you want to be in a short-term account, you're actually going to have negative interest rates. And definitely want to, thank Chip Fernandez. And, when you guys, call me and meet with me, you're meeting directly with me, not with anyone underneath me or not with any of my minions or anything like that.
Which, by the way, you can become a client of Tim's by checking the link below for thelibertyadvisor.com. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, no. And that money is going to things like, I just hired someone who's now helping me out, producing some of the different shows. And I've got another person who's going to help make these live streams more professional by getting everything all decked out. Cause I'm busy. I've never been busier doing other stuff, and I've got other people I can delegate things out to. So one of the big fears people have is, oh, well, how do you get anything done? Like how do I know you'll be watching over my stuff. Well, if you want to get something done, you got to ask someone who's busy. And for right now, I mean, I kicked everybody else's ass, who are financial advisors. And so, I mean, with having all this information, I'm not in there day trading like all these other people. We're making big moves, concentrated moves when we do make moves. And we've been making some moves recently, because our portfolio was relatively static for about 2 years. And that was, the winning strategy. And there's in the description, there's a link for, if you guys text WAM, WAM to 71441, you'll get my presentation called Crisis Retiring, which is what I gave last year at Anarcho in 2019, which I'd recommend 2019s and 2020s. But 2019 will be in there. It's also a backup way for us to keep in contact with you over here at WAM. And then when you become a client, that money is being used to do other things. Because people are like, oh, how come we're not covering this? And how come we're not covering that? And you guys should be doing this and you should be doing that. Well, unless you're paying me, and for those of you become clients, you are paying me and you're helping out everybody else. But I mean, literally, if we had 0.01% of you clients over here, this whole thing would be turned around immediately. And then, I could help, maybe just, have Josh become an employee or something. And then, not have to worry about YouTube or all these other, lizard people.
Yeah, I mean, there's so much that people could do, not just for WAM, but for themselves. And obviously, this isn't going to bounce back anytime soon. We'll see big pumps of the stock market, in my opinion. We will see possibly, who knows, maybe it'll get back to 26, I don't know, 26K Dow in the near future if they keep pumping. But I don't think this is going to end anytime soon because millions of jobs are gone. Millions of businesses will be gone by the end of this, possibly hundreds of millions of jobs overall worldwide.
Yeah, we got some super chats.
Yeah, and I wanted to get to that right away. And I'm going to get to those super chats right away. I just want to mention that China has just lifted their lockdown on the Hubei province despite COVID-19 resurgence. So that's going to go well. And they're probably going to spread that all over the place. And again, weaponized, bioengineered, I think all part of a plan. Google Event 201. It's pretty concerning, to say the least. Cuomo has just claimed that the stimulus deal is terrible and would leave New York with a drop in the bucket. Well, obviously, there are cases exploding there. And the confirmed deaths from COVID-19 passed 20K as WHO warns against lifting lockdowns too early. Well, they're also talking about possibly keeping people locked down in their homes for maybe even 2 years, which is unprecedented and ridiculous to add to that. Annette sent a super chat for $4.99. Thank you so much, Annette. I really, truly appreciate it. It says, have a Corona and chill. Thank you very much. I will have a Victoria. Corona just gives me a bad vibe right now, but I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. You guys are awesome for those super chats. Truly awesome. They are literally what is keeping WAM alive. It's a heartbeat of world alternative media right now. Obviously, Jay Seaton says, just buy more Bitcoin. Well, I actually hooked up a whole bunch of waiters last night. I showed them how to get Bitcoin and everything because they're worried about their jobs. And I said, hey, it might be a good idea. In my opinion, it might be a good idea at this moment because you need to feed your family, sell it at any moment. But if they keep printing money, especially with the peso collapsing too, versus the peso, it's doing pretty good. I think this will be worthwhile for you and your family to be able to buy food. You can buy Amazon gift cards and get food delivered to your house with Bitcoin and all that kind of stuff too. On Bitcoin currently, the rate, let me see what it is at, loading coin market cap for myself here. And last time I checked, it was 67.16 US dollars. And I'm just reloading it. And I don't want any dead air here.
Yeah, last time I checked, it was 6669. So I'm like, oh,
6636 currently, and Bitcoin Cash is at $219, and SV is $173, and Litecoin is $39. It's all kind of even today for the most part, generally speaking. And I think the stock market is making movements in Bitcoin, but at the same time, printing currency is going to have a huge, long-lasting effect on Bitcoin, especially entering into the halving on May 14th. DT sent Canadian $3 in the super chat. Thank you so much. You are awesome. Says, I was referring to business order to shut down. Yeah, absolutely. See, this is the issue in Ontario, in Quebec, all over the US, all over Canada, all over Mexico, anywhere, is that businesses are being ordered to shut down. In Mexico, they're not listening to it. But in Canada, obviously, government reigns in Canada, very much, unfortunately. And so we're going to see a lot of businesses shut down, except for things like hospitals, some grocery stores, etc., maybe pharmacies. And people are going to have nothing. And they say they're going to pay your rent. That's property seizure, guys. It sounds great, but they're going to print currency in order to pay your rent. That is going to lead to so many freaking dramatic problems going forward. And honestly, I don't know. My forecast is that it could last months and months like that, and then carry on for many, many, many years before any form of recovery. And hopefully that recovery comes from a new guard system, not the old guard system that led to this crisis in the first place. I'm very concerned for everyone, their children, their families, their ability to feed their families, how people will react, how people will defend their food. Again, not just building things or gathering things with the toughest guy on the block. I'm very concerned about all of this going forward. And I hope to God that all of you guys are staying safe as much as possible and are prepared, because this is not going to get better anytime soon. It's going to get worse before it gets better, for sure. I've got more super chats. Thank you so much, guys. You guys are freaking awesome. Surf Sailor sent $5 in the super chat and says, can you spend some time talking about supply chain disruptions, what to expect, what to look for, vulnerabilities, mode of failure, etc.? Well, the vulnerabilities are a big part of it is that China produces so much into the economy, which I went into earlier. There's obviously a push to get China to be a monopoly on trade worldwide. And that has been going on since the 70s, most notably, and with the Trilateral Commission and the technocratic state that Zbigniew Brzezinski wanted. But right now, obviously, it's a very inefficient supply chain. Tim, what do you think about the issues of the supply chain and how this has been a major red flag for supply chain disruptions and the weakness of supply chains?
Yeah, I mean, back in the 30s, during the Great Depression, you had a lot of people who were in agrarian society. They knew how to do a lot of things that we as millennials don't know how to do. Not that I like to categorize ourselves as millennials, but I guess technically I am one. But you take a look at, back then you had people who were growing their own food. They knew how to, go hunting, fish, do other stuff, skin and cook everything up. Whereas now, I mean, everyone is just used to like Uber Eats and all these other things. And so when this eventually breaks down, it's going to be a lot worse, in my opinion. And, the only reason things are really still flowing right now is because you have, truck drivers doing their jobs. I mean, I've heard some people say that the trucks, sometimes they're deliberately putting them half full to kind of create even more of a pandemic or whatever, plandemic.
Wouldn't surprise me. Look at what happened in, I believe it was Puerto Rico. After the hurricane, they found all those supplies stocked up, but not handed out. FEMA didn't hand it out. People talked about it at the time. They were called conspiracy theorists. And then about 3 months ago, it was found out and people raided the stocks because there was one crisis after another in Puerto Rico. I mean, that's a very common issue, an engineered collapse of supply chains.
And they wanted to make Trump look bad. So they were holding on to supplies in a big warehouse. And I think, within the last 6 months, they found those supplies and it was a big deal. And I don't know, I'm looking at moving to Puerto Rico. So, now they've screwed things up now, the real estate should be cheaper there. Different tax things going
I don't know. The whole weather issue in Puerto Rico, I don't know. I mean, how many times do you have to get flooded, earthquake, fires? It just seems like, I don't know, it's a beautiful place and awesome people, but my God, the amount of things that hit that place, they have to rebuild, it seems, all the time. I can't even imagine an insurance policy out there.
Well, I'll just get out of it. Well, the insurance policy, if I don't have to pay any U.S. federal income taxes, would probably, more than that savings would probably more than cover insurance policies, right, or flights getting out of there. Yeah. So it looks like, we have another $10 super.
Well, I mean, we're going to get to all these super chats one in a row or one by one here. And I really appreciate you guys. Hit that like button too and share on social media. You guys are awesome and you're keeping us up and running. So big appreciation for you guys. You guys are the heartbeat of Wham. And I've said it before and I'll say it again. But I do want to mention, as far as the mode of failure for something like what we're seeing with supply chains today is based on our weird attachment to old guard systems and our inability to move into new ones, which has a lot to do with the controlled market, the manipulated market, the government controlled market, not capitalism, not free markets, but control of markets by government and its inability to innovate, compete and create new great things. Moving on to Silverhawk, sent $1.99 in the super chat, says thank you, let's do this together. Absolutely. No collectivism, a group of people that get together and work voluntarily for the greater good of ourselves and defend each other and protect each other without government force, without slavery, without theft, without the printing of currency and utilizing crises in order to push people into servitude. We must work together in this.
Without $1 trillion coins.
Power in numbers.
And I do
absolutely.
I do see some people's I just lost it. I think it was like Rita the Voluntarist or Rika the Voluntarist. I can't find it now, but it was talking about growing food. And I recently I have an aeroponic, and someone else commented, like, how are we supposed to grow food if we don't own land? Well, I have an aeroponic tower garden. I don't sell these, so I'm not making any money off this. So it's just really a pretty confined spot. It's, you know, this vertical garden uses about 98% less water than traditional agriculture. And then it just recycles the water. And yeah, you've got to make sure you've got the right nutrients in there and it's at the right pH level. And the water out here in Arizona sucks. So I've got to, you know, even have a special filter, because even the plants, what I realized, I'm like, man, the water sucks so much. Even the plants rather die than, you know, drink this water. And so, you know, out here, I was doing that about 5 years ago is when I stopped. And then once my daughter was born, then I had another kid, and they started, you know, ripping all the food out of the bottom. So it just became fruitless, no pun intended. But now I thought, you know, hey, I've got this stuff. Why not get it out of storage? Right. So I've got it up and running, and it should be here. I got some seedlings coming in that should be here any day now. But yeah, if there's ever a time to have a backup, I mean, I'm a financial advisor that has a food supply, has, you know, going to be able to grow food out here.
Absolutely. And that's the biggest, most important part of self-sustainability.
You can grow food on a porch. I mean, do you have a porch? You can grow food on one of these things. And, you know, with the amount of, and why don't we, instead of giving people food stamps, why don't we have different community gardens? Why don't we help people to be self-reliant, self-sustainable? It's because it's not about helping people, it's about controlling people.
Absolutely. And that's always what the government does. It doesn't matter about, they don't want to give people freedom. They cannot give people freedom. They can only take it away. You give yourself freedom. You demand freedom. You enforce your own freedoms. Hugo Castro sent $9.99 in the super chat. Thank you so much, Hugo. Awesome. He says, great job, Josh. It's not easy to move to Puerto Vallarta. Have a cerveza at La Vaquita of Melicon. The one problem there, and again, thank you so much. They closed La Vaquita about 7 days ago, about 1 week ago. When I first got here, it was open for its last night, and then the government shut it down because they were a nightclub. It's really sad. You can go there, and you know there's a swing that you can go back and forth on there. They have a swing that goes over the bar. Right now, they have one staff member sitting there and pushing women on the swings for a tip, and that's about it. There's nothing happening there. It's really sad to see. Right now, I'm a little bit concerned about how this is going to turn out, but I left all my property behind, my house, my vehicle, everything, except for some clothes for my back, my laptop, my camera, and microphone. I came out here. And here I am. And honestly, I'm glad I did, but I'm getting very concerned. I'm more concerned about the government in the US, but I'm getting very concerned about the desperation out here and what that will lead to. So I hope for the best. Thank you so much, Hugo. You are awesome. And moving on to, let's see, the next super chat here. It's hard to go through this because the chat is jumping all around. But okay, Richard Hoekstra sent €2.29 in the super chat. Thank you so much, Richard. You are awesome as well. All of you guys are awesome. And those that hit the like button, anything helps, guys. Again, you guys are keeping us up and running. Grant Rennie sent £1.49. Thank you very much. Put a picture of a hot dog in there. I will not eat hot dog, but I appreciate that. I will definitely spend it on some nachos or tacos or burritos aquí in Puerto Vallarta. Gracias, mi amigo. Much appreciated.
People are saying I have hydroponics and aquaponics. Technically, and I would like to get into aquaponics, but that's a little bit too advanced. But yeah, I actually have an aeroponic, which is technically a little bit differently, and you can grow it with just a super, super small amount of space. And it goes up. I think I can fit like 30 different plants in there. Yeah. So anyways, yeah, people ask you that in the comments.
That's a really important thing that I remember people talking about many, many years ago when I first started hearing about this kind of stuff and how innovative it could be in the situation where there is a crisis. Absolutely. If you don't have a huge amount of property, having these systems up and running so that you can feed your family is incredibly important. And of course, with that, some defense, so you can defend that food of yours. But moving on, also, Virtual Moida sent $10 in the super chat. Thank you so much. Oh man, these super chats are seriously making it possible for me to stay alive out here, guys. So thank you. It's been a very difficult week, and it's been very stressful. It's beautiful weather, beautiful views, beautiful beaches, but very, very stressful because everyone's losing their job worldwide. My family is dealing with a lot. My mom works at a hospital in Canada and is just surrounded by just the worst. It's really bad, guys. So I really appreciate it. This is literally what's feeding me and keeping me alive because YouTube has shut me down almost entirely. There's also GoFundMe, Patreon, subscribe star, just $1 or more a month makes a huge difference, guys. And you can pledge on float.app in crypto, as well as donate cryptocurrency in the description below, and join our new newsletter at www.iamband.com, iamband.com, where you can send in your email and join that newsletter. So I really appreciate it, guys. My internet's getting a little faulty here. But anyway, John 23Z says my sister lost her 3-year job in Toronto. I know, it's very sad.
30 year job, I think.
Virtual Moida says spread truth. Thank you so much. 30-year job. Wow. Yeah, that's horrible. Get down. I'm not going to read that whole name, but says you should have a website. I should. It keeps going up and going down. I can't maintain it. It sucks. But if you join that newsletter, it'll help me reach you all the time. My God. Anyway, hit that like button if you haven't already, guys. Make sure to check those links below. GoFundMe, Patreon. Tim, stop laughing. I mean, anything helps, guys. You guys are keeping us up and running, and those super chats today made a huge difference. So thank you. That's going to keep me up and running for the next few days and make it possible for me to keep pumping out content. And right now, it's never been more important to focus on the truth, focus on information in a very, very difficult time. One of the most dramatic times in recent history, by far the most. We've never seen anything like this. It happened so fast. A lot of people are calling it the apocalypse. I say it's the end of one system, the beginning of a new.
Until next week when it gets even crazier. So, I mean, it's...
Oh, I know. It's going to get worse before it gets better. 100% it's going to get worse before it gets better. But let's see. VGB says, or VGBIS, or is the crash delayed now with the stimulus coming in? Delayed. Before we cut it off, Tim, can you quickly, do you think this will be delayed in any way?
I mean, yeah, maybe it's been delayed by 2 days back to back of recent stock market gains. But I mean, the stock market and the economy are not synonymous terms. They become synonymous terms. But you can, just have the Fed come in and start buying lots of stock and then have the stock market go up. But if, 20% of Americans don't have jobs, I would consider that to be depression-like scenarios. And so I don't know, unless the government's going to pay everybody to start digging ditches and refilling them back in, or breaking windows, and like Paul Krugman theory of how we can get things rolling again over here. But yeah, it's been delayed a little bit. But the thing is, it's been delayed for pretty much our entire lives. It's been getting delayed, and at this point, if you go to kick that can down the road, you're going to break your foot. And at this point, I don't even think that there is too much can kicking left. And yeah, I think on a long enough time horizon, I mean, I expect the Dow to be over 1 million someday. And I'm not going to put a date on it, certainly, but I would say right now, I'm 1,000% confident by not financial advice, just my own hyperbole, by the time I'm 65, the Dow will be way over 1 million is my guess. But, if you're 5 years old, you don't have another 30 years to wait that out. So it's very important that you manage something called sequence of return risk. But, that was important to know that 3 weeks ago, not necessarily important to know it now. But, I gave that presentation at AnarchoVegas last year in 2019. So definitely, that is super valuable information. The one that's in that crisis retiring, I would say it's more valuable today than it was. Well, actually, it's probably more valuable back then if you listen to it. But it's super evergreen content of how to get through these hard times. That I needed a crisis retiring, how to survive how to retire in a crisis-like environment. I mean, so if you're 55 to 65 and haven't checked it out, I mean, what are you doing? I should be charging like $500 to go watch that presentation, but instead it's there, it's free. 0.0001% of the people that watch it, will end up becoming a client. And that's how I'm able to pump stuff out for free. That's how we're able to do things like this. But, we want to be able to get things up to even another level. And the only way we can do that is, the super chats help. And then, the super small percentage of people that become clients, that helps tremendously. And the thing is, it's not about helping me, it's about helping you guys too, because anyone that would have came over would have been in the winning strategy. And, and past performance is no indication of future returns. But I mean, how many times has lightning had to strike? I mean, I was in 2007 and moved my student managed investment fund into cash. Got chewed up by everybody. This is real money for the school that I was going to, SUNY Geneseo in upstate New York. And how did you get a millennial from New York going to liberal arts school? Now I end up, it couldn't be any more opposite. Nobody would ever peg me as being coming from that background. But the great thing about coming from that background is that, no one can say like, oh, I don't know their propaganda, because I was directly seeing their propaganda the entire time. I was taking classes on global warming, taking classes on the Federal Reserve.
Right.
Never told us.
And by the way, Tim, we are running out of time. It's funny. Usually you're the one running out of time. This time I'm running out of time. But I do have to go right away. But I want to mention a couple comments quickly. One person said, well, what about the Nikkei? It's 35 years later. It's still effed. I mean, quickly, what would you say about that?
Well, the Nikkei 100 is, which is sort of like our, the Japanese version of like the S&P 500, but I guess with 100 stocks. The largest owner in there is the Bank of Japan. The Bank of Japan, I'm sure John Sneisen knows a stat off the top of his head because I've asked him 50 times about it, but it's like 88.7% of all the new purchases by the ETF market in Japan is being done by the Bank of Japan. So effectively what that means is that is fascism. That is the state coming in and buying the corporations. So it would be the merger of the state and corporations, which is actual fascism. But, where's Antifa talking about that? Oh, well, it's
right.
not.
And by the way, the Olympics has been canceled until 2021. We got another person that mentioned how WestJet got crushed. Air Canada will go down. I can't even imagine the bailouts, if any, if it's even possible, that's going to hit the airline industry. It's just unbelievably shocking to see what's happening to the airline industry. I mean, it was bound to happen eventually. It's just, this is over the top beyond anything I could have ever believed would happen all at once. We seem to be getting hit by all ends. It's like literally one bad thing leads to another right now, which is why we all have to stay safe and be together and work together and support each other. I really appreciate it, everyone. Bonifacius Valsgantas sent SEK 50 in the super chat. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Again, you guys are awesome. You guys are keeping us up and running, and those super chats make a huge difference. So make sure to hit that like button. You guys are feeding us, making it possible to bring this information to the public's knowledge on a daily basis, and we cannot do it without you. So hit that like button. Please join that newsletter at www.iamband.com. That is www.iamband.com. You can text WHAM to 71441 for Tim's crisis retirement report. If you're interested in that, you can become a client of Tim's.
It's a presentation, so it's a whole video and everything. It's on a private link on YouTube. So the only way to get that is so you can't just go to my channel and go find it there, but you can go to my channel and subscribe to it. Just got above 1,000 people yesterday, influx of about 250 people yesterday. So definitely appreciate all the help of that. And now it looks like I can finally go live over there. So yeah.
Awesome. Yeah, let's keep building up Tim's YouTube channel as well. Obviously, you can become a client of his at thelibertyadvisor.com, linked below. Also, get your WHAM merchandise at Teespring, at the Teespring store. Got to have some fun with this insanity. And honestly, I need to make $1 more in sale to take my money out of there. So sales I made 3 months ago, I still can't get the money for because I need to make $1 more in order to get the money out of it. It's stupid. You can also keep checking below for float.app. I'm at Josh Sigurdsson as well as at WHAM. Tim is at the Liberty Advisor on float.app. That's flote.app. The future of social media, replacing Facebook, YouTube, Twitter, Twitch, Tumblr, Reddit, and Patreon, all in one with encrypted private messaging. Obviously, monetization on videos, super chats in crypto, on live streams, and no algorithm to hide information from you. You can subscribe to our new YouTube channel, Whamcast, where I will be in the future once some of this stuff stops being so crazy, doing podcasts. So make sure to find us on there and check out GoFundMe.
Can I come out with Timcast, or is that already taken? No, sorry.
No, Whamcast.
No, I was joking. I was making like a Tim Pool joke.
Tim Pool dad joke.
Guys, I want to know, who do you think talks faster, me or Josh? Because I think that putting both of us. I think
Ben Shapiro wins. By the way,
you can be a winner and a loser at the same time.
I'm just trying to rush, man, because we got to close it off right away. Patreon, Subscribe Star. Obviously, we have our Bitcoin address below, as well as Litecoin address and Dash address and Bitcoin Cash address below. If you want to donate or tip on there, and find us on Minds, Twitter, Instagram, all sorts of stuff. So I hope to see you all there. Thank you so much, everyone. Hit that like button. Rainy Steps sent $2.79 Canadian in the super chat and says, thanks for all the info with the nerdy glasses and thumbs up. I definitely agree with the nerdy glasses and thumbs up. Thank you so much for the super chat. You guys are freaking awesome. Again, hit that like button and share on social media, or else we won't be able to reach anyone, because we are insanely shadow banned now more than ever, especially as this crisis continues here on planet Earth. So I really appreciate all of your support, guys.
And the consensus is that you are the faster talker, but I'm a close second. So
yeah. We were pretty close. Anyway, there's so much happening. You got to get to everything, and I appreciate everyone tuning in. And until next time, this is Josh Searson and Tim Picciott signing out from World Alternative Media. Find the truth, be the change.